Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone to Photon Exchange. आज हम आए हैं प्रोफेसर नुमान जफर के साथ. Professor Nauman Zaffar, would you like to give us a bit of an intro about yourself and an introduction?
जी ज़रूर. Nauman Zaffar, I'm a professor electrical engineering at Lahore University of Management Sciences. My area is in energy and power systems. और मैं LUMS में I've been here since 2010 for 14 plus years now. I did my undergraduate and graduate studies from University of Pennsylvania from 1986 till 1994. 94 में I came back to Pakistan and joined University of Engineering and Technology, again electrical engineering department में. I was there as assistant professor till 2000. उसके बाद I joined industry. I was with Techlogics Pakistan Private Limited for 10 years from 2000 till 2010. And that's when I joined academia again. जो 10 years हैं, they were in the software industry, but I'll talk more about the overall journey.
So before we start, we want to get to know you better, and we want the people watching our podcast to get to know you better. So a fun way we've devised that is a little game called Two Truths and One Lie. Are you aware of the rules and what you have to do?
I just came to know about it a few days ago, but so I sort of understand. But yeah, I think I can start.
Okay. So can you tell us 3 statements, 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself?
Okay. I love trekking, and I consider myself to be a good sportsman, and I am the most healthy person in my family.
Okay, so 3 statements.
Trekking or sportsmanship, I think.
Goes along.
Haan.
But then again, maybe the fact that it goes along is where he's trying to get us.
Mhm. So where do you like trekking? Can you ask follow-up questions?
So yeah.
So again, I've trekked in almost all the geographies I've been in for a significant amount of time. That includes US, China, and Pakistan.
Okay. I don't think this is a...
I feel like he struggled a bit in thinking of the idea, and then he made it US, Pakistan, China because he'd been there. But this could be true.
क्या कहते हो?
One, yeah, I think second is sahi hai.
Second सही है.
Second sahi hai.
1 या 3. So what do you mean by you're the healthiest person in your family?
In terms of the general health metrics, जो generally लोग कहते हैं उसमें मेरी family के अंदर I am considered to be the most healthy person.
So do you have children?
Yes.
So how old?
3 children. One is almost 28, one is 25, and then 15.
I think 15 and 25 are like the primes of your life in terms of health as well.
So maybe that's he's trying to throw us off. But I think it's 1.
I think it's 3. So what is it?
So you're talking about the lie part,
The lie.
right?
He's saying it's 1 and I'm saying it's 2.
It's 3 of So I try to make it, I mean, you know, like in a way that all 3 would appear to be lies. So, but
Yes.
I worded it cited differently. I mean, I love trekking. I've done a lot of trekking, so that's the truth. I consider myself to be a good sportsman. That's the truth. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm good at sports. It's just my own sort of view of my own capabilities. And so we're 5 brothers and 1 sister, and generally very close in terms of our ages. तो बचपन सारा जो है वो एक कंपटीशन में गुजरा था स्पोर्ट्स के अंदर. हर एक को ये लगता है कि सबसे अच्छा स्पोर्ट्समैन सारे स्पोर्ट्स में वही है. मुझे पता है मैं नहीं हूँ वैसे जनरली, लेकिन
What sports?
हर तरह के जिनके जो समझो कि जो खेल सकते थे. सो क्रिकेट है, टेबल टेनिस है. सो आई नॉट played football a lot. I mean, I was in boarding, so part of the activities in boarding school involve you participating in all the sports. तो फुटबॉल खेला हुआ है, बट आई थिंक जो बेहतर वाला था उसमें हॉकी, क्रिकेट, टेनिस, टेबल टेनिस, बैडमिंटन, ये सारी चीजें आ जाती हैं.
Interesting. So, yeah, so that was actually, I think, the most competitive it's been in 2001 there. Because for the first shows, we just guessed all of them immediately. Should we move to the questions?
So do you want to do another truths and one that move on to the question?
So why don't I trigger it in the middle? I'll just think of something because it's not something that you give the cue. You ask me to say it, right? So I'll trigger it somewhere in the middle.
So starting with your educational background, so yeah, you've graduated and you've done your bachelor's and master's from one of the top universities in the world, which is University of Pennsylvania, and you did it at a time where colleges studying abroad wasn't popular, especially among Pakistani high school students. How do you think you got the resources and the guidance to do that? And do you think there were factors that were self-motivated, or did you receive a lot of help from outside?
So definitely not self-motivated in terms of, sometimes life takes you in directions that you've not planned for. So I'll start with the journey itself. My early high school was at St. Anthony's High School, Lahore. I was there till by the start of my O-levels, and then I moved to Army Burnhall College, Ahmedabad. So I did my O-levels from there. After O-levels, then the general trend was to go at that time. This was November, December '83 when I appeared for the O-level examinations. At that time, majority people would actually go into the FSC stream after O-levels. There were only 3 places where A-levels was offered, one in Lahore, 2 in Karachi. So I was in boarding in Ahmedabad. So the total, our batch size for that O-levels class was 27 students. Out of that, 14 came back to Lahore. Part of it was just to have fun, but we appeared in the Asian College entrance exam. And then, I got selected. And HSN was very competitive for people who had not sort of joined at the A-levels part. And again, that opened up a lot of opportunities that otherwise I would not have even have considered. So again, the culture was such where the students would apply for undergraduate studies abroad. Part of it was also motivated by a strange rules in Pakistan. My batchmates who had done their FSC, if they chose engineering, which I wanted to pursue, would go into UET Lahore in the same year or the following year of their FSC. And for us, because the result came in late, we would have to lose a year. And then the motivation was that if you sort of apply for undergraduate abroad, and of course for me, financial aid was a mandatory requirement, and the options were there. So I just applied. I was lucky to be selected, given admission, and also financial aid at University of Pennsylvania. Again, a great opportunity in my opinion. But the best part was that with the A-levels, they would actually give you advanced placement from the freshman year courses. So I actually saved a year. Overall, the impact was 2 years, even more than that, because at that time, undergraduate in Pakistan would not be completed in 4 years. I think my batchmates took almost 5.5 years to graduate from UET Lahore. So again, at this stage, I don't consider saving a year sort of an important part of one's journey in life. But at that time, it was definitely something where you would not want to lose your academic years, so to speak, at the prime of youth when you're sort of, all gung-ho about learning, development, growth, and career. So, yeah. So it was probably the opportunities that a college like HSN opened up, where people would generally be applying, and So I got to know that these are possibilities which I didn't know before, and being part of that stream where people were applying, I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Madhur Salim Akhtar, who was our career guidance counselor at Edson College. A very gentle soul and somebody who really helped a lot during the application process. So yeah.
So you mentioned you decided to pursue engineering, and you knew that you would pursue engineering in university. So why did you choose engineering, and why electrical engineering specifically?
I was generally I considered myself to be good in science subjects and mathematics. So that was the core motivation. My mother really wanted me to be a doctor. During my O levels, so I had biology as well. Again, in the science subjects, my inclination was more towards physics, chemistry, and mathematics. So, and at Edson College, the strange thing was that A levels biology was not offered. So I told my mother, "Oh, sorry, I really wanted to become a doctor, but unfortunately now I have to choose three engineering subjects." So yeah, so that sort of led towards engineering.
So what subjects were that you chose for your levels?
Physics, chemistry, math. At that time we didn't have the culture of appearing for a lot of A levels, so it was generally a choice of primarily three subjects that people chose and then appeared. So
but again, as he said, you chose engineering. That was very clear for you because physics and maths. But in Miyake, you still had a choice between all the types of engineering that are available. So why electrical?
So if I really reflect back, I love chemistry, at least up to O levels. A levels was a different story altogether. But so electrical engineering, I think that if I objectively look at it, the major reason was just the fact that it was the most sought after engineering discipline at that time. So if I reflect back onto the admissions at UET Lahore or even international admissions, electrical engineering was the most competitive engineering discipline to get into. I was sort of, okay with other engineering disciplines as well, but I think it was sort of, just I won't call it sort of pride, but just pursuit of excellence and feeling that, okay, that's what I should target because that's sort of, what is directly associated with the highest merit. So that's how it started. I think when I started my undergraduate years at UPenn, computer science was an emerging field at that time. I took my first course in the first semester of freshman year. It was a very hard course in computer science. I loved that course. So by the end of the first semester, I wanted to actually do a double degree in electrical engineering and computer science. तो मैंने जब दोस्तों से बात की उन्होंने कहा पागल है मर जाएगा ये दोनों बहुत मुश्किल सब्जेक्ट्स हैं why do you want to do both तो फिर then I chose electrical engineering and I think electrical engineering at least I'll explain I was given an opportunity where the industrial experience was in computer science. So I got to pursue my other passion, my other conscious passion during my professional career. And I think I loved both computer science and electrical engineering, but spending 10 years in a very good company, it was Technologics Pakistan, which was at that time the recruiter of choice, and it was one of the larger software houses. I got an opportunity to work in Pakistan with customers, clients all over the world, which were sort of the bigger Fortune 500 type companies. But at that time, I truly discovered that my passion lied in electrical engineering. So it just happens that, the choice that was made during the undergraduate years, at least through the trajectory that my life took, that appears to be the choice which, if given an opportunity to choose again, I would choose electrical engineering for sure.
So you've spent a lot of time in academia. You've obviously been to UPenn and you've taught at UET and you've taught at LUMS, right? So because you've been a part of academia for both the US and Pakistan, what do you think are some key differences and key differences in environment, especially in the US and Pakistan? And what do you think Pakistan could do better in terms of their education from what you've learned over at UPenn?
So again, when I talk about spending time in academia, I think UET was a unique experience. It allowed me to sort of rethink everything that I'd studied so far as a student and in electrical engineering, because when you go into teaching, you not only have to think about the material on how to analyze problems, you now have to break it down into those smaller digestible chunks that you can explain to fresh minds who are out there and who's seeking sort of ways of digesting that information which is coming. So in that regard, I think teaching gave me a great opportunity to rethink everything that I had studied. And it also allowed me to appreciate the way many teachers, excellent teachers at UPenn, had conveyed that knowledge, and I probably could not appreciate that while I was a student that much. And just to give you an example, exams होते हैं, exam से पहले all-nighters लगते हैं. So I had a friend at UPenn, electrical engineering के अंदर ही, his name was Romel Singh Dadda. So again, he was from the US and he ended up pursuing electrical engineering as a pre-med subject during his undergraduate, and he went on to become a doctor. But बड़ी strange वो behavior था उसका. हम जब एग्ज़ाम के लिए पढ़ रहे होते थे ना, तो कोई कॉन्सेप्ट होता था, उसके क्वेश्चंस होते थे, हम उसको सॉल्व कर रहे होते थे, तो हमारी डिस्कशन होती थी, तो मैं कहता था अच्छा ये वाला सवाल जो है ना उसको हम सॉल्व करने के लिए इस तरह से इसको करेंगे और ये वाले फार्मूलाज इधर अप्लाई हो जाएंगे तो ये आंसर निकल आएगा और ये दिस इज़ व्हाट द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग फॉर. और उसका सवाल होता था क्यों. तो मैं कहता था रोमेल कल एक इम्तिहान है, तो अभी मेरे से पूछ रहा है कि ये क्यों अप्लाई होता है. मगर तू ना ये सोच कि ना जब ये वाले सवाल होते हैं ना तो ये रूल, ये वाले प्रिंसिपल्स, ये वाले लॉज अप्लाई होके ना आंसर आता है. वो कहता था नहीं मगर इसका रियलिटी में मतलब क्या होता है. मैं कहता था पागल है, कल इम्तिहान है और तू जो ना इस चक्कर में पड़ा हुआ है कि इसका मतलब क्या है. जबकि हमारा जो अभी जो है ना वो कल के इम्तिहान से पहले हमें पता होना चाहिए कि कौन कौन से टॉपिक्स हैं, उनको किस तरीके से सॉल्व करना है और हम किस तरीके से उसके इन सिंपल वर्ड्स आंसर्स कैसे निकालेंगे. और जब मैंने पढ़ाना शुरू किया था, that was the thing I appreciated the most, that it's not the knowledge, it's not the learning in terms of solving problems, but engineering is an applied area. It's an attempt to understand how the universe works. The way I explain to students is that science is the pursuit of understanding, and this is according to my belief and principles, of how Allah Ta'ala created the universe and what underlying rules. So I call it Allah Ta'ala की सुन्नत, सुनन अल्लाह, वो क्या हैं ताकि हमें समझ आए कि चीज़ें किस तरह से चल रही हैं. और इंजीनियरिंग जो है, it goes a step beyond. It not only is a discipline to understand or an attempt to understand how things work, it is then to develop a capability of manipulating it. If you understand that these are the underlying principles, then you can think of new ways of creating something which never existed before, based on the same rules and principles. And that requires not just knowing the stuff, but understanding how it relates to various phenomenon which is occurring all around us. एंड मेरे बहनहाल में टीचर थे और उनका एक स्टेटमेंट थी, वो कहते थे कि a good scientist is a good observer. So यानी हमें अपने आसपास की जो चीज़ों की awareness का होना allows us, and then relating it to what we study in the classroom is absolutely essential to graduate from an analysis-based mindset to a design-based mindset, where you can start creating magic. You can now do stuff which was never done before, which people cannot even think is possible. And that's where the true essence of engineering lies. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question or I digress, but I do that. So
I think that was a very beautiful answer.
That was a very good answer. Sir, since we're on the topic of the engineering mindset and what you should be, I think we should move on to our next segment that we prepared for you, which is the tech innovation challenge problem. So basically, we just want to understand how an engineering mind works, how you find a problem, look at it, think how I'm gonna go solve it. Like, do you think like how you do, or like how your friend thought about it? Like, we just want you to think out loud about the problems we're gonna tell you.
Essentially, brief us through what an engineer does when he sees a problem. He breaks it down into steps, manageable steps, and then targets those manageable steps. या क्या scenario होता है? What goes through your mind when you see a problem for the first time?
So I'll have to again just give me a minute to think about it. But जो important चीज़ है वो ये है कि engineers thrive on problems. I mean, that's sort of the raw material that engineers require. Again, Pakistan is sort of a heaven. We're full of, I mean, wherever we see problems, right? And again, a statement that I give to so many people is that engineers inherently are problem solvers. So we need to understand the problem, and the first thing that you think about is the reason for the problem. I mean, what is it that's causing an issue? And you break it down into the fundamental principles that sort of, I mean, sort of which might govern why this is happening. And that leads to hypothesis that says, okay, I don't know. I mean, so nobody, I mean, I'm almost 50, I'm 57 years old now, and at this age, one thing that I know for sure is that I don't know a lot anyways. And so that I can't claim whatever hypothesis I make is going to be the right one. And that's the scientific mindset per se. But you create a hypothesis and you say, okay, based on what I know, of how I think the universe works, these are sort of the possible reasons why we're facing this challenge or this issue. And then it becomes sort of the same mindset that exists for solving a riddle that you listen to for the very first time. If you know the solution, or if you have done problems in a certain domain multiple times, a new similar problem takes you on a very different journey. But discovering a solution for the very first time of something that you encountered for the very first time is a completely different journey. And so think of this as maybe being on a rocky beach where the map of the treasure might be under any of the literally tens of thousands of rocks that are scattered all over the beach. And one approach would be to start looking under each and every rock and then seeing if you can find the treasure map just by chance. So here you would actually think about possible strategies and trying to optimize the path towards success, a path towards finding a solution. And that journey is an unbelievable journey of discovery. In that journey, you hope and hopefully you would achieve the ultimate final path towards success, but that's not the core achievement in this journey. So जो सही solution है ना वो तो probably एक दरवाज़ा होगा जो कि सही रास्ते के लेके जाता है, बट उस तक पहुंचने के लिए हर गलत दरवाज़ा जो खोलते हैं ना, that gives you wealth of other understanding as well, that you can analyze and see why that you assumed would lead to the answer did not lead to the answer. और यहाँ पर आई थिंक जो मैं स्टूडेंट्स को बताता हूँ ना कि जो अप्रोच होती है व्हेन यूर से कंप्लीटिंग असाइनमेंट्स और सॉल्विंग प्रॉब्लम्स टू डीपन द लर्निंग इन अ पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट, खुद करने में और समझ के करने में फ़र्क है. कई दफ़ा एज स्टूडेंट्स वी डू नॉट रियलाइज. सो देयर आर again on a simplistic level there are three possibilities. या तो मैं कॉपी कर लूँगा and that sort of kills the learning process completely. एक है मैं समझ के कर लूँगा, और समझ के कर लूँगा मतलब ये है कि किसी ने कर लिया था तो उसने वो दरवाज़ा डिस्कवर कर लिया that leads to that leads to freedom or solution for a particular problem, और मैं समझ लूँगा क्या हुआ. So what you've done is probably you've gotten 10% of what you could potentially get, and this is just a number I pulled out of thin air के तुम 10 दरवाजे खोलोगे तो 9 गलत होंगे, एक ठीक होगा वाला, राइट? तो जो खुद सेल्फ डिस्कवरी वाला एलिमेंट है ना, you not only learn what is the right path, you also discover 9 other paths that did not lead to the right solution, but you get a chance to experience why it did not lead to the right solution, and in that gain insights जो कि possibly वैसे शायद possible ही ना होता. यानी कि ज़िंदगी के अंदर ऐसे मौके कम मिलते हैं जब बंदा जो है वो उसको enriching experience मिल रहा हो जिससे वो gain कर रहा हो. And और ये भी नहीं पता चलता कि वो वाली knowledge जो subconscious के अंदर, nobody can take away that from you. And nobody can impart the knowledge one has to any other person without an effort on the part of the person who's learning to create those interconnects in his or her own brain by themselves, which is crucial. अगर हम इसको सोचेंगे तो जो ज़िंदगी के अंदर जो learning और टीचिंग की जो जर्नी है उसका क्रक्स यहाँ से निकल के आता है. और जो लर्निंग वाला एस्पेक्ट है उसमें it's the challenging part is कि शुरू में ना जब बिल्कुल बेस अभी बनी नहीं होती, so there is a lot of extra effort which is required, which is creating a foundation for future knowledge to be built on top. And you can't leave gaps there because they're going to come and create hindrances in your eventual growth and future direction. But वो मेरी राइटिंग बहुत ख़राब है. मैं बचपन में मेरा अगेन दिल करता था क्लास में नोट्स लेते हो जल्दी नोट्स लेने का. तो मेरे लिए मेरे लिए अच्छी राइटिंग वही थी जिसको मैं समझ सकता था बाद में। और जाहिर बात है अगर आदमी ने खुद लिखा हुआ हो तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें ना बाय एसोसिएशन जहन में वैसी होती हैं, सो आई नेवर कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड ऑन इम्प्रूविंग माई राइटिंग। और इफ anybody has actually gone through that journey of getting into the habit of creating good handwriting would know that it's a slow and painful process. And शुरू में you feel that you're handicapped क्योंकि the process is slow. What I realized now at this age is जो मेरे बाकी दोस्त थे जिनकी हैंडराइटिंग अच्छी थी, उस अच्छी हैंडराइटिंग के साथ उनकी स्पीड तो ओवर टाइम तेज हो गई, बट नाउ दे कैन राइट फास्ट बट दे कैन ऑल्सो डू इट इन अ ब्यूटिफुल मैनर। आई कैनॉट गो बियॉन्ड अ सर्टन स्पीड, बट मेरी राइटिंग कभी ठीक नहीं हुई, और वो नहीं होगी क्योंकि मैंने कभी उस पर एफर्ट डाली नहीं, बल्कि ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी मेरे जो इंटरकनेक्ट्स हैं वो हो ही गलत गए हैं। अब वो राइटिंग है ही ख़राब, वो ठीक ही नहीं हो सकती है। और बट वो जिन्होंने एफर्ट डाली थी उन्होंने अपनी बेस इतनी स्ट्रांग करवा ली, एंड दे caught up to what the eventual goal was, which was to be able to do it quickly if there is a need. तो and just again quoting an example, ये तुम लोगों को पता भी नहीं होगा, बट मेरे बचपन में राइटिंग को अच्छा करने के लिए there were special ways in which it was done। और तुम्हें अंदाजा तख्ती
जो लेटर्स लिखवाते हैं A to ABCD पूरी,
वो तो पेपर पे होता है ना, तख्ती होती थी। तख्ती को सुना हुआ कभी?
स्क्रॉल।
So it's not exactly a scroll, but it was a wooden tablet। और उस wooden tablet के ऊपर there was like जैसा ट्रेडिशनल नहीं होता, इंक पॉट होता है, और फिर वो पेन होते हैं जो कि एक्चुअली आई थिंक बैम्बू के बने होते हैं, मुझे नहीं पता किसके बने होते हैं, बट यू वुड एक्चुअली उसकी टिप को आप काट के एक एंगल पे आप कैलीग्राफी की टाइप चीज़ बनाते हो, और फिर आप उसे तख्ती पे लिखते हो। और वो तख्ती जो है वो उसको इरेज करने के लिए ना देयर वाज अ स्पेशल स्टफ जो कि पता नहीं किस चीज़ का बना हुआ होता था, बट उसको ना जैसा साबुन से जिस्म को रगड़ के मैल उतारते हैं ना, उससे उसको तख्ती को रगड़ के साफ करके उसको दोबारा फिर रीराइटिंग के काबिल बनाना पड़ता था। तो यानी एक बड़ा पूरा एक एलैबोरेट मैकेनिज्म था टू गेट द राइटिंग करेक्ट, बट अगेन आई डाइग्रेस।
तो वो जो केस में हिस्टोरियंस को स्टोन टैबलेट्स मिले थे, वो असल में बस राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस करते थे।
नहीं वो आई थिंक उस जमाने में तो पेपर थे ही नहीं, तो राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते थे, लेकिन मतलब भाई के वहाँ
आई थिंक द बिगेस्ट थिंग टू लर्न हियर इज कि ज़ैफ़ा अपनी राइटिंग प्लीज अच्छी कर दो।
अगेन जितनी जल्दी
वो तो बस ट्राइबल हैंडराइटिंग। As I said, you explained a very nice way, how to tackle problems one by one, and you gave great examples of that. So, but we want to demonstrate that as well. So, we have a problem here. The government of Pakistan wants you to make a new smart city in the northern regions of Pakistan. You have been placed in charge. How would you go about it?
Again, it's an interesting question, and what you posed is a mega problem. You're going to be setting up a city in the northern areas, and I assume when you talk about the northern areas, you're talking about area जहाँ पे access की भी issues हैं और जहाँ पर utilities की भी issues हैं। और मेरा अपना एक area है, और ज़ाहिर बात है जब मैं इस प्रॉब्लम को देखूँगा तो मैं उसको अपने पर्सपेक्टिव से देख रहा हूँ। मेरा एरिया जो है वो एनर्जी एंड पावर सिस्टम्स वाला है। आई कैन थिंक अबाउट other areas as well. For example, mobility, transportation is another area. Electric vehicles की वजह से थोड़ा सा correlated है, but then there are other areas like, for example, medicine and medical facilities हैं, मेरा उनसे distant ताल्लुक है, करीब का ताल्लुक नहीं है। So the problem you posed is a mega problem, which means it has many dimensions. मेरे अपने बैकग्राउंड की वजह से हो सकता है मुझे कुछ प्रॉब्लम नज़र भी ना आए, क्योंकि मेरा वो उसमें ट्रेनिंग ही नहीं है। But so I'll talk about it from, say, the energy and power and maybe communication perspective, and communication includes mobility as well as information communication. So I think the key thing is to understand uh, accessibility and enablement. जब हम एक city की बात करते हैं, we're talking about an area that would hold attraction for people who would come and live in that city. What is it that would enable that? Part of that is the environment. And again, if you talk about the northern areas in Pakistan, not all people, but many people find it a very, very nice place to live. Why don't we have a lot of people living there? Because it's actually, compared to plains, your mountainous areas are harder to live in. Even walking and doing chores takes a larger amount of effort than it would take in plains. उसका सबसे सादा एग्जांपल ये है कि प्लेन्स में मुझे चलते हुए सोचना नहीं पड़ता. पहाड़ों में आई डोंट नो ट्रैकिंग का शौक है या नहीं है, बट अगर विथ अ डार्क नाइट, यानी जो मूनलेस नाइट वाले एरियाज में, टाइम्स में, you would at night it becomes extremely difficult for the untrained eyes to even see the path. और ये ना एक अनबिलीवेबल हैंडीकैप है, क्योंकि जो लोग प्लेन से जाते हैं, रास्ता नज़र भी आ रहा हो तब भी चांस बहुत ज़्यादा होता है कोई एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा. एंड देयर द एक्सीडेंट मीन्स कि अगर ये गलत जगह पे स्टेप रखा तो chances हैं you'll either die, you lose your life, or you lose maybe a limb or something, or you become sort of handicapped. Possibility है उसकी. And so इसलिए लोग जो है ना वो वेकेशंस के लिए जाने का सोचते हैं, वो खूबसूरती को देखते हैं, बट सेटल करने के लिए जाने का सोचते वक्त ना उनको डर लगता है कि अच्छा वहाँ जाएंगे फिर करेंगे क्या, लाइवलीहुड कैसे करेंगे, और रहने के जो चैलेंजेस उनको कैसे एड्रेस करेंगे, एंड सो ऑन. तो इफ़ the goal is to set up a city, you need to identify a place that is accessible and that has the resources that can allow a host of different types of professions to be simultaneously present. And then you need enablement, you need some basic necessities of life. Access to clean water becomes an extremely important area. Normally we associate northern areas with an abundance of clean water. That's actually not the case. And even in areas where we have Indus flowing nearby, people generally struggle to get water to irrigate their lands. And part of the reason is just because of science. I mean, gravity है, और वो इंडस जो है वो ओवर टाइम जो गुजरता जाता है तो वो उसका लेवल नीचे होता है और आसपास के लेवल जनरली ऊपर हैं, और that's just, I mean, how it happens naturally. If you extend what's happening now to maybe thousands of years, तो पानी को नीचे से ऊपर लेके जाना is a very difficult task. Water is one of the heavier substances that exists. और अगर जो ट्रैकिंग करते हैं उनको इसका बखूबी अंदाज़ा है, जहाँ पे उनको अगर अपने पीने का पानी साथ लेके जाना पड़ता है, दैट बिकम्स अ बिग चैलेंज. तो आमतौर पर ट्रैकिंग में वो पहले से पता करवा देते हैं कि जिस जगह ट्रैक करें वहाँ पे दरमियान में क्लीन वाटर की सोर्सेज आएंगी या नहीं आएंगी, और कितना पानी लेके जाना है, और वो वाला. एंड सो देन energy, which is generally not considered to be an absolute necessity. Again, for a city to be established, it probably is one of the core essential ingredients. Access to abundant energy at affordable rates, so that value addition can be created at price point which is more conducive than maybe other places, and that can become an attraction. फिर आप देखोगे कि उस पर्टिकुलर जगह की कोई यूनिक एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं जिनको आप एक्सप्लॉइट करके उससे रिलेटेड इंडस्ट्री और लाइवलीहुड्स की कोई मैकेनिज्म क्रिएट कर सकते हो. And again, that would require probably some kind of mechanization, automation, which would again require energy. And when we talk about energy, it's not just electrical energy, but also other forms of energy which is required to carry out various industrial processes. वो चाहिए होगा. Roads or accessibility, connectivity, communication infrastructure, जो उसकी प्री फिजिबिलिटी है. और यहाँ पे मैं छोटा सा पॉइंट डाल देता हूँ कि यू कैन थिंक ऑफ दिस एज अ प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइज, यू कैन थिंक ऑफ दिस एज अ गवर्नमेंट बैक्ड इनिशिएटिव, और इन दोनों में ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क है. ऐसे अगर मैंने रोल रिवर्स से करना हो तो मुझसे सवाल पूछूं, तुम्हारे ख्याल में कौन सी चीज़ ज़्यादा आई शुड से बेहतर है? प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइजेज में और गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव में फ़र्क क्या है?
आई गेस इट वुड बी कि आपको बैकिंग कितनी मिल रही है और फंडिंग में डिफरेंस होगा.
और प्राइवेट का जो पर्पस होगा फॉर द सिटी टू बी एज पॉपुलर एंड मेक एज मच मनी एज पॉसिबल, और फिर जो पब्लिक होगा दैट बी जस्ट टू गेट अ सक्सेसफुल सिटी रनिंग. बट आई वुड अज्यूम कि वहाँ पे प्रॉफिट का मार्जिन.
और आल्सो आई थिंक लाइक अगर गवर्नमेंट बैक करेगा तो इट बी इजियर टू एग्जीक्यूट because of all the like backings and organization and army help. But if it's like private, it'll be harder to get permissions, to get.
Again, that's also true, but I think जो core difference है ना between government and a business venture, जो business है by definition उसका एक ही मकसद होता है, and that's to make money, and that's not nothing bad. There's nothing wrong with it. But many a times there are things that have to be done to create an enabling environment, and those themselves may not be profit making from day one. And that's where government comes in. Government का मकसद पैसे बनाना नहीं है, उसका मकसद जो है वो वेलफेयर ऑफ पीपल को प्रमोट करना है. उसके कोर मकसद जो है वो नई वैल्यू क्रिएशन का है. और जब लोग वैल्यू क्रिएट करते जाएंगे तो एक पूरी साइकिल, एक इकोसिस्टम जनरेट होगा जो उस वैल्यू को साइकिल करता जाएगा, और हर साइकिल के अंदर से फिर वो रेवेन्यू जनरेट होता है जो गवर्नमेंट के पास जाता रहेगा. बट एटलीस्ट इन सम वेज एंड फॉर्म्स देयर हैज़ टू बी इनपुट विच इज़ रिक्वायर्ड. And this, for example, includes road infrastructure. हम generally road infrastructure के साथ toll associate नहीं करते हैं. हम कहते हैं कि हमने तो टैक्स दे ही रहे हैं. हम टैक्स दे रहे हैं तो जो रोड का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो तो हमें as part of our basic life की necessity मिल ही जाएगा. In different parts of the world, basic education की right, जो कि एक फंडामेंटल राइट के तौर पे पाकिस्तान की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में भी एग्जिस्ट करती है. हेल्थ फैसिलिटीज़ की राइट. दीज आर एरियाज दैट इंडिविजुअली मे और मे नॉट बी फाइनेंशियली वायबल. इन अ सिटी विच इज़ अबाउट टू बी फॉर्म्ड, सेटिंग अप अ हेल्थ फैसिलिटी with machines and tests and operation theaters where the population is sparse might not be economically viable, but those availability of those facilities can then create an influx of people to come and live. If those aren't there, it becomes a chicken and egg situation. नहीं होगा तो लोग आएंगे नहीं तो बनाने की फिजिबिलिटी नहीं होगी. so एक शुरू के अंदर एक enabling environment को create करना एक mandatory requirement होती है. तो again I would look at those basic sets of facilities that needs to be established, some core areas of focus for that particular geography जो कि एक competitive advantage देगा लोगों को वहाँ पे relocate होने का. उसका एक पूरा thought process, और उसका एक pathway of creation would become important, and that would include then all the subsidiaries like energy hai, clean water hai, or utilities hai, and basic needs and infrastructure.
Okay, sir. You completely just made a new city. ये तो आपने सॉल्व कर लिया. देखते हैं सेकंड प्रॉब्लम में आप कैसे अप्रोच करते हैं आप. The second problem we have is reducing e-waste. The problem statement is the world is facing a growing e-waste problem. How can we design electronic devices that are easier to recycle or have longer life cycles? So this is more of a technical question.
Okay. Yeah, I think well, again I'll answer it from my own perspective, but one of the key things that happen in the software industry is a concept of reusable components, and there are the concept of design patterns, where, for example, if you are going to be developing software solutions, and many companies provide bespoke solutions, custom software development की services provide करते हैं. So what do you do? I mean, if somebody is seeking a solution, you would go and you would bid for it. You would say that here's my proposal to solve your problem. And then you would not be the only person putting in a bid. It generally is a competitive process. So you need to create value, and that value could be in terms of the types of services, in terms of the quality of services, and in terms of cost of services. और जो software services companies हैं, they then think of how they can provide the quality of service and the kind of service without incurring very high cost. ये cost किसकी होती है? ये software developers, engineers की cost होती है. That's a very high cost element in the software industry. फिर वो क्या करते हैं? फिर वो कहते हैं कि हमने ना, और इंडस्ट्री की नीड को देखना होता है, और वो कहते हैं कि जो नीड है ना, हम उसकी पूरी नीड को ऑल एट वंस नहीं बना सकते, तो हम ना उसको अप्रोच जो लेते हैं ना, वो लेते हैं मॉड्यूलर एंड स्केलेबल. So you first divide that entire solution into smaller chunks. Those chunks you would ideally want to be reusable components wherever you can. And then you want to make sure that once the solution is being used, the amount of processing that happens is going to increase because more and more people are going to be using it. So it has to be scalable. So स्केलेबिलिटी का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है इन सॉफ्टवेयर स्लाइटली डिफरेंट होता है. जब हम इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स की बात करते हैं वो स्लाइटली डिफरेंट होता है. कुछ ओवरलैप है, कुछ डोमेन के अंदर डिफरेंसेस हैं. बट अगर मैंने देखना हो तो आई वुड देन start considering, and this is sort of the approach that we use at LUMS, for example, in designing of our modern day battery systems. And we say we don't have to design our battery system जो है ना वो बड़े interesting है, and our battery की waste is a major problem. That's a key question that everybody asks. If you're seeking funding for a particular project or pursuit of an idea, they don't only look at how you would approach it and solve it and what is the problem you're solving. They also ask you upfront, अगर ये सॉल्व हो गया और इसकी प्रोलिफरेशन हो गई तो इसकी वजह से जो वेस्ट क्रिएट होगा उसका क्या करोगे? That's an upfront question that all large funding agencies ask you. So then we have to think about how to design the problem, solution to the problem from scratch, और उसका डिज़ाइन इस तरीके से करें कि हम उसको एक एक लेगो ब्लॉक्स की तरह या जिक्सॉ पजल की तरह हम उनको कंबाइन भी कर सकें और डिफरेंट तरह के सॉल्यूशन को क्रिएट भी कर सकें. So it's not just recycling of effort, but also recycling of components, because when something becomes obsolete or something fails to operate properly, it's the combined whole, the system that's not functioning properly, or the system that needs upgradation. It doesn't mean that each and every component needs upgradation. So in that regard, you can design that. That would be one approach that I would say, and it's easier said than done. But I think one thing that I've taken from the software industry and now apply to power electronics and electronic sides of things is exactly this concept of modular and scalable design, so that we can do it. So that's one approach. And then the other is just to inherently look at the overall system. And electronics is like magic.
We're back live. Sir, we left off from a point where you explained solutions regarding two of the biggest problems, and we essentially just solved everything. So yeah, I want to build up on that. You are a director NIC Lahore, NIC Lahore, and you've worked in LUMS as well for a long time. उसके अंदर you have different projects, for example जो development of electrically operated vehicles है, आपका batteries हैं. So sir, I'd like to know more about that, since you talked about scalability, you talked about entrepreneurship उसके अंदर, and also the fact how you deal with competitors. For example, जो easy bikes in Islamabad, that they have a monopoly over the entire market in Islamabad. Don't you feel that if, for example, you're doing well अपने बात के ऊपर, they expand to Lahore, so उसके implications, consequences, how do you deal with that, sir?
I think one good thing that happened because of the experience in the industry when I rejoined academia in 2010 at LUMS was that the work that I did took on a more applied nature. तो उसमें नए solutions to problems की identification, design, development, वो aspects थे. But the key idea was to try to take it from the lab and take it to the market, create a solution for people. So I'll just start with a small portion of the journey. जिसमें LUMS में जो LUMS Center for Entrepreneurship है, it started almost 11 years ago. 2013 के अंदर ये start हुआ था. मेरा पहला जो स्पिन ऑफ था वो LCE के पहले बैच के अंदर इंक्यूबेटेड था. और अगेन मुझे तो हर एक को अपना बेबी अच्छा लगता है, मुझे भी अपना आइडिया बहुत पसंद था. बट द आइडिया आई स्टार्टेड वाज रिलेटेड टू द वर्क दैट आई वाज डूइंग इन द लैब. एंड और उसके अंदर पार्टनर्स जो हैं वो मेरा एक UPenn का ही अंडरग्रेड का दोस्त था जो सिलिकॉन वैली में होता था, ही बिकेम ए पार्टनर. और एक उसका सिलिकॉन वैली का दोस्त था, ही ऑल्सो केम इन एज अ पार्टनर, और हमने उसको परसू किया था. जो सोल्यूशन था वो जनरली एप्लीकेबल था, बट वी क्रिएटेड अ वे ऑफ running motor loads more efficiently and in an energy and power constrained system. तो उसको ऐसे समझो कि हम आम तौर पे जो अपने मोटर लोड्स को चलाते हैं वो they're the more difficult loads, that types of loads that exist on the power system. और ग्रिड के ऊपर हमें ज़्यादा तंगी नहीं होती क्योंकि grid allows different types of loads to be driven in a non-linear or a eccentric way. But अगर यही वाला grid ना हो और हमें उसकी प्रोविजनिंग खुद करनी पड़े, जैसे UPS है या ऑफ ग्रिड सॉल्यूशंस के अंदर है, मोटर लोड्स बिकम वेरी डिफिकल्ट लोड्स टू कंट्रोल एंड रन. तो हमने वी फाउंड एन इफेक्टिव वे ऑफ रनिंग दीज on what we call power constrained systems, and to run them efficiently with savings of 20 to 60% of the energy consumption. One of the applications was on split air conditioners, non-inverter. उस ज़माने में इन्वर्टर AC इतने होते नहीं थे कि हम उसको किस तरीके से कंट्रोल्ड पावर के साथ चला सकते हैं. So we could run a 2-ton Mitsubishi air conditioner on a 1 kilowatt UPS as well. जब हमने इसको डिज़ाइन किया था ना, तो हमने कहा था कि सोल्यूशन ऐसा हो जो कि अगेन मॉड्यूलर स्केलेबल. हमने उसको सिंगल फेज़ मोटर्स के लिए और 3 फेज़ मोटर के लिए, दिस इज़ टेक्निकल डिटेल, बट समझो हमने जेनेरिक एप्लीकेशन के मुताबिक उसको डिज़ाइन किया था. सो दिस जस्ट टू लेट यू नो कि किस तरीके से जो मॉड्यूलैरिटी स्केलेबिलिटी वाला एस्पेक्ट है वो इट क्रीप्स इनटू द डिज़ाइन एस्पेक्ट्स दैट वी डिड. सिमिलरली 2017 के अंदर वी स्टार्टेड वर्किंग ऑन लिथियम आयन बैटरीज एंड अगेन इंडस्ट्री का प्रोजेक्ट था. सोलर ग्रुप्स के one of the Gen 2 had come back from UK and he wanted to pursue development of batteries for EVs. We had a discussion. I told him 2017 के अंदर EVs का अभी पाकिस्तान में आने का कोई इरादा भी नहीं था और कुछ नज़र भी नहीं आता था होराइजन के ऊपर. And batteries are the core component in an electric vehicle. Any cost wise, it's between 40 to 60% of the total vehicle cost. तो मैंने कहा था कि देखो कोई EV बनाने वाला ना किसी और की बैटरी पे डायरेक्टली डिपेंड नहीं करेगा, ख़ास तौर पे अगर बैटरी बनाने वाले की अपनी कोई सॉलिड फाउंडेशन ना हो, क्योंकि उसकी ईवी की सक्सेस और फेलियर का मेजर कंपोनेंट इज़ द बैटरीज. तो व्हाई डोंट वी लुक एट द स्टेशनरी स्टोरेज सोल्यूशन. ये वो जो नॉन मोबिलिटी बैटरी स्टोरेज एप्लीकेशन हैं उनके ऊपर. सो वी लुक्ड एट UPS एंड सोलर एंड टेलको टावर बेस्ड सोल्यूशंस and we then designed an approach to lithium ion new age battery solutions that would be modular, scalable for different types of applications. वो 12 वोल्ट, 24 वोल्ट, 36 वोल्ट, 48 वोल्ट सारों के लिए compatible हो, और हम उसको building blocks के तौर पे in both the voltage levels and the storage capacity उसको बना सकें. And सबसे important, it should not only open up new applications but be compatible with systems that are already deployed. उस ज़माने में जब मैंने एनालिसिस किया था, there were more than 2.8 million UPS systems that were already deployed in Pakistan. वो सारे के सारे lead acid battery system के साथ compatible बने हुए थे. If we were to introduce lithium ion batteries, you could not replace lead acid batteries with lithium ion batteries in these existing solutions. So we took that and created an interface within the batteries that would enable that to happen. तो ये वहाँ से निकल के आया था. Around 2018 time frame, me and a colleague, Dr. Naveed Arshad, we started working on the national EV policy. Along the way we realized कि गवर्नमेंट जो है ना वो बहुत तेज़ नहीं मूव करती है. So we then developed partnership with industry, but then we also realized that EVs जो है ना, it's not a single integrated manufacturing aspect that we're talking about. We identified at least 6 different areas that need expertise. So when you talk about EV development, so we formed a consortium of partners that would work in 5 of those domains. One domain we left for future work, और उसके अंदर फिर we developed a swappable battery based concept. और मकसद उसका भी यही था कि it becomes a modular system. हम अपनी बैटरीज को जेनेरिक बना देंगे, और 2 व्हीलर्स में मोटर बाइक स्कूटीज़ के अंदर वो 1 या 2 बैटरीज डिपेंडिंग ऑन द रेंज रिक्वायरमेंट वो लग सकती हैं. 3 व्हीलर्स में 4 लग जाएंगी और छोटी गाड़ियों में 6 लग जाएंगी, और उससे हम एक लेवल ऑफ एप्लीकेशंस को इनेबल करवा देंगे उससे ऊपर challenges आते हैं. I won't go into that detail. So this modular, scalable, swappable battery concept came in again as an underlying design concept. Zip Technologies hai, Easy Bikes hai, they're also working in the same domain. There are other players as well who are working in the same domain. But I think they need to understand the overall design of the solution space and the applications that they're targeting. I consider the work that we've done at LUMS, and we've shared it at different fora already. Takes into account many of those challenges, and this is where I feel that we have a USP compared to many of the other players in the EV industry. And the best thing that happened out of this was that we discovered that if we look at it from this perspective, the application of this battery as a service model is not limited to only mobility applications. You can also use it for electrifying areas that are not connected to grid even. Or even if you're connected to grid, and we worked out a whole model, and the preliminary results, we've not deployed it in the, so हमारी EVs वाले pilots तो लाहौर मुल्तान में already चल रहे हैं, चल गए हैं. But ये वाला मॉडल जो है, it's again इसकी पूरी analysis होके development की stage के अंदर है. But जो इसके analysis के अंदर से results निकल के आते हैं, वो areas जो कि grid से connected नहीं हैं, हम उनको energy supply कर सकते हैं for productive applications, for value added applications at rates that are cheaper than the rates at which grid provides electricity to its existing users. नए users को grid पे ले जाना तो unbelievably cost prohibitive है. So how do you enable those people who do not have access to grid electricity? और पाकिस्तान के अंदर, as just one example of a developing country, we have between 50 to 80 million people who fall in this category. Emphasis के लिए ऐसे कह देता हूँ मैं, क्योंकि जब realization हुई थी तो मुझे भी it was shocking. What does this number 50 million to 80 million people mean in real terms? So I had a visitor at LUMS Center for Entrepreneurship who came from Australia. ऐसी visitor था. उसने आके पूछा लाहौर की कैसा सिटी है. मैंने कहा सेकंड लार्जेस्ट सिटी है पाकिस्तान का, और उसकी कितनी पॉपुलेशन होगी. मैंने कहा अराउंड 15 मिलियन 16 मिलियन के करीब है. उसने कहा नहीं ये नहीं, तू सही नहीं कह रहे हो. मैंने कहा कि नहीं अंदाज़न इतनी ही पॉपुलेशन है. तो वो ना विजिबली सरप्राइज था. सो उसके जाने के बाद आई लुक्ड अप द नंबर्स फॉर ऑस्ट्रेलिया. सो ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज़ अ कंट्री एंड अ कॉन्टिनेंट, राइट. एरिया वाइज it's 10 times larger than Pakistan approximately. Population wise, it's only 26 million. That's 1/10 the population of Pakistan, which means population density wise, we are 100 times more densely populated than Australia. और जो हम बात कर रहे हैं ना 50 million to 80 million people, we're talking about twice to 3 times the entire population of Australia. पाकिस्तान में जो है जिसके पास इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की एक्सेस नहीं है, एंड इन दिस डे एंड एज इट मीन्स दे आर नॉट अ कंट्रीब्यूटिंग प्रोडक्टिव पार्ट ऑफ सोसाइटी. सो दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ चैलेंज दैट वी कैन सॉल्व not only for Pakistan. There are, according to some estimates, more than 1 billion people worldwide who fall in this category. So we can enable them. We can provide them to access to electricity beyond subsistence. So those are the kinds of things that we can we can think about. And again, the opportunities for these lies in, I mean, any area that you pick, there are opportunities that exist if you start thinking about it objectively and deeply to understand the pain points and then come up with a solution.
So I wanted to talk about how systems are being managed at LUMS, for example, because even when I was there, you talked about swappable batteries, but there are certain challenges that come with swappable batteries, especially software के challenges होते हैं कि आपको you need to, for example, employ a hash ताकि कोई और ना आपकी बैटरी ले सके, and so your battery only works in your vehicle and किसी और की ना करे. So this just shows how interrelated scientific divisions are. जैसे computer science का aspect आ गया, इसके अंदर electrical आ गया. So how important do you think it is in today's day and age to be, essentially collaborative and allowing interdisciplinary research to happen in different universities?
So, School of Science and Engineering at LUMS was established to address, among other challenges, exactly this challenge as well. और एक एस्पेक्ट जो इसमें कवर करने की कोशिश की गई थी वो थी जो मैन मेड साइलोज ऑफ नॉलेज है ना, स्टूडेंट्स को उनसे एक लेवल ऊपर तक पहुंचा दिया जाए. And one of the key concepts in that regard was a common freshman year. So when you enter LUMS, up until now, you do not declare your major at the time of your admission. Your first year, you are allowed to go through what we call a core set of courses that spans all the essential domains of knowledge that exists in science and engineering. And then after the first year, you are then asked to decide your own choice of major. So if you have not missed out on the bare minimum requirement for a particular major, you are actually allowed to choose whatever you want from the School of Science and Engineering offered majors to pursue as your undergraduate degree. So ये तो हो गया at a student level. We do have departments. Any School of Science and Engineering के अंदर there are different majors which are offered, and then there are departments that sort of oversee the programs which are being offered. But फिर LUMS क्या करता है? LUMS कहता है कि, and again, so these are departments within school, and then there are 5 schools overall that make up the university. फिर LUMS कहता है कि जो knowledge है और जो problems है ना, वो किसी एक स्कूल या किसी एक डिपार्टमेंट की डोमेन तक कन्फाइंड तो है नहीं. These are real world problems, and the problems don't say that, okay, I'll confine myself to this particular domain only. So LUMS has this concept of what we call centers, and centers by definition are administrative units that are inter-school. They have to have a cross-cutting area of overlap. So we have multiple centers. There's a center which is a Water Informatics and Technology Center. There's LUMS Energy Institute. There's Technology for People Initiative Center. And there are other centers. LUMS Center for Entrepreneurship. They're not confined to any one school or major or department. And that allows a collaborative platform for experts from different domains to come together to look at problems that actually exist in real world and may have areas of focus that are diverse and in different centers. So that's how LUMS tries to solve this particular issue of the myopic view that departments in schools sort of create. और the students को मैं example देना होता है ना, मैं कहता हूँ कि there are different I would say, environmental factors which, or I would say, जो आसपास की happenings हैं, क्योंकि हमें उसका पता नहीं होता ना, हमें ये भी नहीं पता चलता कि वो हो रही हैं. We are oblivious to them. And a typical example for that is dog whistle. Dog whistle का idea है ना? So dog whistle हम बजाते हैं, आवाज़ ही नहीं आती, हमें नहीं आती. मैं कुत्ता भागता हुआ आ जाता है. The stimulus is there. Our senses are not tuned to it. So even if it is happening, we are oblivious to it. We can't even sense that it's happening. And this is what happens with knowledge as well. There could be something which is coming and hitting you directly, but because we are not aware, हम उसको observe ही नहीं करते, हम उसको देखते भी नहीं, उसको sense ही नहीं करते हैं. तो जो ये interdisciplinary वाला concept है ना, that is to provide you with some knowledge and base in different domains, so that not only can you apply it when you're designing a solution and you don't miss out that aspect, but if you're observing something and something from a different domain is happening, you can actually observe that as well and appreciate it and note it and record it, as that is part of the overall event which is happening. Now, completeness, these are real world challenges. I mean, we're limited by, and human beings are very limited set of creatures. I mean, हमारे responses slow हैं, हमारी power limited है, हमारी sense of observation बहुत limited है. But then we supplement it with other either means of observation, sensors जैसे तुमने पहले जिक्र किया था, by developing those. हमारे अंदर तो नहीं built लेकिन होते हैं. And we use that to supplement the observation and knowledge and then use it effectively in not only understanding phenomenon but designing solutions around it.
That's an interesting take. Should we move to the segment?
Before we move on to our last two segments, I want to ask the question I'm most excited for. Sir, the human race reset हो रही है, ठीक है? And you've been declared responsible for leaving them with one sentence, just one sentence, that would contribute the most to their advancement. What would your sentence be? And me and Zaffar had a very large debate over this.
You've read Feynman as well, right? You've read about Feynman. So उसका भी एक similar सवाल पूछा गया था उससे. And he had a sentence.
Again, Feynman is probably in a different category altogether. I mean, but so I use a quote. I mean, it's not my quote. It's I don't even know. I mean, where it originated. So on the net, it's attributed to many different sources. Some call it an American Indian proverb, but I think it has a depth that sort of touches at least my heart. So I mean, I would want to share it in this regard. Or let me just formulate that in my mind and then. It goes something like this, that we do not inherit this earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So, I mean, this particular concept is deep. I mean.
So are you suggesting that this will teach them, when they reach that point, for example, अगर वो वापस civilization शुरू होती है, the importance of sustainability at an early date?
Exactly. And I mean, again, as a responsibility. So, for example, the concept of inheritance is, okay, किसी और ने ना करके मुझे pass on कर दिया, I can do whatever I want with it. It's now my property, right? So we do not inherit this earth from our ancestors. जो borrowing का concept है ना, that's somebody else's property. We borrow it from our children. So it is something that we have taken and we need to return it either in the same form or a better form for the next generation to come. when हमारी responsibility तो मुझे लगता है कि ठीक है इनहेरिटेंस हो गई, हम जो मर्जी करें उसके साथ. तो that has been sort of, I mean, the take of the human race for, I mean, eons, where we've not looked at the implications of our actions, and we don't even feel the responsibility, and at most we think, okay, मेरी ज़िंदगी के अंदर जितने साल रह गए हैं उसके बाद जो होगा देखा जाएगा, बाकी अगले खुद ही संभालते रहेंगे. But if we take it as a responsibility of passing it on and the legacy that we create for our children or the next generations to come, that is where the sense of responsibility lies on our shoulders.
So you think that this sentence would help the human race the most if they regressed back, let's say, caveman days?
I mean, again, when you say regress, I would say that if at that level, so again, if you talk about regression, it would mean that people would actually not be paying heed to this particular sentiment, and it would take us back to a state where everything would go back into. So what's the difference between a caveman state and now? Many things have evolved, and they've reached levels that the people could not even think possible. तुम्हारा घर जो है ना बिल्कुल एयरपोर्ट के करीब है, राइट? इतना बड़ा जहाज उड़ता हुआ जा रहा होता है. It's an unbelievable feat of engineering if you look at the airplane, right? It's made up of material that cannot fly, right? I mean, वो मेटल का बना हुआ है, तुम उठा के टुकड़ा फेंकोगे वो फक करके नीचे गिर जाएगा. It contains human beings that cannot fly. हम होते हैं, हम उड़ ही नहीं सकते, लेकिन जहाज में उड़ते हुए जा रहे होते हैं. वो ह्यूमन बींग्स भी हमारे वाले जहाज के अंदर पाकिस्तानी होते हैं, वो वैसे ज़्यादा हैवी होते हैं, राइट? वो उसके साथ भी उड़ रहा होता है. और क्योंकि पाकिस्तानी होते हैं ना, जहाँ पे उनको एक बैग अलाउड होता है ना, वो 2 बैग लेके आ रहे होते हैं. वो भी बैग भी नहीं उड़ सकता, एंड इट स्टिल इज फ्लाइंग, राइट? सबसे मज़ेदार बात पता क्या है? उसमें से कोई भी ऐसी चीज़ नहीं है उसके अंदर जो ईयन से इसी अर्थ का हिस्सा नहीं थी. कोई एलियंस नहीं आए, कोई बाहर से कोई चीज़ नहीं आई जिसकी वजह से ये एनेबल हो गया. सारे मटेरियल इसी दुनिया में हमेशा से पाए जाते थे. देन we could so many people put in so much effort in trying to create discoveries and breakthroughs that enable that to happen. When we talk about going back to caveman, regressing back to that stage, it means कि हमने जो borrow करने वाला concept है ना उसको तो ignore कर दिया, inherit करके ख़त्म करने वाले concept को इस level तक ले गए कि हम caveback में वापस आए. On the other hand, ऐसे कि अगर caveman के stage के ऊपर में इसको सोचा होता तो हमारी डेवलपमेंट ना रुकती, बट हम उसको इस तरीके से करते हैं जिसमें हमारी जो ओवरऑल अर्थ की सस्टेनेबिलिटी एट क्वेश्चन ना होती, द वे इट इज़ राइट नाउ. बट मैं कहता हूँ ये भी बुरी चीज़ नहीं है. आई मीन जस्ट हैविंग दिस अवेयरनेस ऑफ अ प्रॉब्लम दैट एग्जिस्ट इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप टुवर्ड सोल्यूशन. बंदा ठीक उस चीज़ को करता है जिसको गलत माने. गलत चीज़ कोई ठीक करता है ना, सही चीज़ को तो कोई ठीक नहीं करता. Acknowledging something which is not right is the first step towards correcting it. So we're there. We just need to make sure कि हम उसको उसकी implications की पूरी gravity को समझ सकें.
So that's a very interesting way to go about it. मैं और ज़फ़र तो बस ट्राई कर रहे थे कि how can we put the most amount of information in one sentence.
And say my take on this was, because I would give them a sentence, or rather not a sentence, but I've just thought of this now. The most common and universal form, that because we don't know कि जो humans generally speak English or speak a certain language, if they were reset, if civilization begins again. So I'd show them how to plant crops, सही है? And why I think this is important, and more important than what Goss said, is I'll tell them about quantum mechanics and what. whatnot. So I think because the period between when we were cavemen and the period between agriculture जब first discovered हुआ था is much longer than the period between agriculture and quantum mechanics, which really shows that once we get to that agriculture standpoint, our populations increase at a rapid level. उससे medicine भी stem होती है, science और obviously since the dawn of time से stem हो रही है. तो उसके बाद जो काम होगा humankind का, that will be reduced significantly. As opposed to अगर आप उनको एक sentence दो पता नहीं कौन सी language which they may or may not speak और आगे जाके वो quantum mechanics तक पहुंचे ना क्योंकि उनको आगे तक चाहिए ना.
And I think हाँ बिल्कुल सही हो गया. वैसे by the way तो एक again maybe we need to look at it more deeply, but तुम्हें पता है एग्रीकल्चर का origin क्या था?
सर आई थिंक कि वो उससे ही ड्राइव था कि बिकॉज पहले तो हम एनिमल स्लॉटर कहते थे.
पहले हम हंटर गैदरर्स थे. एग्रीकल्चर का origin again मुझे the way I recall it, so I might be wrong, but I'm just saying एग्रीकल्चर का origin जो है ना वो बहुत कंस्ट्रक्टिव नहीं था, वो जंगों की वजह से था. क्योंकि आर्मी और सस्टेन करना और जो प्लंडर है उसको लिए ना you needed sort of to be able to feed that army and that effort and everything, and agriculture allowed productivity to reach a level where, for example, everybody did not have to spend their energy and time on the same set of activities, and defense or offense became sort of a secondary thing. That became sort of the primary thing, and their needs were supported by this enhanced efficiency in being sort of independent of the efforts required for food for sustenance. तो यानी उसके बाद हाँ पॉपुलेशन बढ़ गई. पॉपुलेशन बढ़ने से फिर यहाँ पर प्रोबेबिलिटी थी कि कोई एक जहन कोई डिस्कवरी करेगा, वहाँ पे 10 जहनों ने डिस्कवरी शुरू कर दी एंड सो ऑन. बट आई मीन अगेन इसको एक बार सर्च कर लेना कि ये जो एग्रीकल्चर वगैरह का जो है ना वो
by showing agriculture not am I only advancing human race पता नहीं कितना साल, but I'm also stopping wars.
But देखो
नहीं स्टॉपिंग नहीं ना, मैं बता रहा हूँ कि इनेबलिंग है.
सर नो कैसे सर देखिए wars एक पॉइंट पे तो enable होते हैं नहीं है ना सर. आपको लगता है when there's two humans सही है there is bound to be a disagreement.
जब तक वो नहीं था ना तो मैंने लड़ाई भी करनी होगी ना. अल्लाह मैंने पेट साथ लगाया हुआ है ना, मुझे एफर्ट करनी पड़ेगी पेट पालने के लिए. अगर हंटर गैदरर हैं कोई स्टोरेज तो हुई नहीं हुई कोई, तो मेरा बहुत सारा परसेंटेज ऑफ एफर्ट तो हंटिंग गैदरिंग में लग जाता है ना. टाइम कहाँ मिलेगा जंग करने का.
सर लेकिन अब फ्रॉम माय पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू अगर आप टॉपिक पे आते हैं जो क्या है सबसे एडवांस करना सबसे ज्यादा, अब जो जंगें होंगी वो तो होंगी. आई थिंक अगर आप क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स से एक पॉइंट पे अगर रीसेट करता है प्रॉबेबली एक सिमिलर पाथ ही फॉलो करेंगे. ये हंटर गैदरर्स थे, एनिमल्स को हंट किया, ऑब्जर्व किया एनवायरनमेंट को, मारा खाया, अच्छा फीड हो गए हम, उसके बाद हम आगे कल्चर में जाएंगे. सही है. अब वो अगर ब्रिज कम कर दो तब भी जंगे होंगी, थोड़ी लेट होंगी बस. लेकिन अब मेरी बारे में जल्दी होंगी लेकिन खाना भी बन जाएगा. जितने बंदे जंगे से मरेंगे उससे ज्यादा खाना होगा आपके. और
बात सुनो मेरी, वेट पहली बार ये जो ब्रेक हो रहा है, वन सेंटेंस है, तुम पूरा खाने लगे हो. मैं खेती बाड़ी कैसे करते हैं?
नहीं मैं वैसे दूसरी बात में पानी डालना बोल रहा हूं तो माशाल्लाह.
तो सब पूरी हर बंदे को पता चल जाएगा हाउ टू क्रॉप प्लांट्स.
तो तुम्हें बता
इतना सिंपल थोड़ी ना, यू हैव टू डू सो मच स्टफ टू क्रॉप प्लांट्स, एग्रीकल्चर फार्मिंग के लिए. तुम्हें आलू से नींव में डालना खाओगे.
अनबैचली बताएं ये ज्यादा आसान होगा या बताना कि श्रोडिंगर की इक्वेशन की इस ये वैल्यू है.
आई सेड आई वुड.
देखो तुम्हारा क्वेश्चन इतना बायस्ड है, इसका आंसर ही एक है. श्रोडिंगर इक्वेशन तो तुम 16 साल की एजुकेशन के बाद भी समझाने की कोशिश करो, उनको समझ नहीं आएगी.
अच्छा बात खत्म हो गई है.
Okay, let's move on. Rapid fire tech questions. So this is a quiz for you. ठीक है सर. आपके
मैं कोई क्लेम नहीं करता इसके अंदर मैं अच्छा करूंगा.
सर अगर कुछ गलत हुआ तो वो काट देगा. स्टार्ट करें सर.
करो.
What is the function of a rectifier in an electrical circuit?
Rectifier allows energy to flow in one direction. That's the main function. वैसे तो जो उसका traditional definition है, that's it converts AC to DC, but
Exactly यही है.
क्या बात?
What does the acronym FPGA stand for?
field programmable gate arrays.
In electrical engineering, what is the main purpose of a transformer?
It's so again, people consider it to be a voltage transformer, but it's actually an impedance transformer. That's again a misconception. But
What is the primary difference between a conductor and a semiconductor?
the number of charge carriers per unit volume.
Essentially what it says.
What is a common use for an op-amp or operational amplifier?
Again, op-amp is one of the more general purpose circuit blocks, but it again can be used for various different reasons. It can amplify a signal.
So, what is the typical voltage of a USB port?
5 volts अगर हम उसको normal उसकी बात करें.
It is not only telling the answers, it's improving answers.
So, almost like you did electrical engineering.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that comes from within.
What is a PCB in electronics?
Printed circuit board. It's an area where the circuit can be connected without wires.
अगले पूछो अगला page.
Which device is used to measure electrical current?
So it's primarily ammeter, but ammeter itself consists of sensors. Two main ways. One is what is shunt, which is a resistor-based device, and the other is a magnetic field-based device.
What is the difference between serial and parallel communication?
So again, it's the number of ports which are used to transmit information.
What does the acronym RFID stand for?
Radio frequency identification device. I don't know if it's correct or not, but.
What is the function of an inductor in an AC circuit?
So inductor again, it's an energy storage element, but primarily it in an AC circuit it stores and transmits energy back and forth, and then you can use it for different purposes.
What is a BJT in electronics?
So BJT is one of the transistors. It's a bipolar junction transistor.
Yes. So there, 100 out of 100, 100%.
नहीं मैं क्या तुमने ना वो
सर हमने उसको कहा था कि like we search for actual complex concepts उसने ये दिया था.
Wait, ये थोड़ा complex.
Okay.
Sir, what is a Smith chart and how is it used in electrical engineering?
So Smith chart is think of this as क्या कहते हैं उसे जो कैलकुलेटर की जगह यूज होता था beads.
Abacus.
So think of this as an abacus for transmission line calculation. That's an impedance chart for various.
So we'll have better questions next time.
सही है. I like this question.
Okay, so now we have a rapid fire this or that. So we're gonna ask you two options, A or B, and then you're gonna tell us which answer you prefer. PCBs or breadboards?
PCBs.
Oscilloscope or multimeter?
Oscilloscope.
Electric vehicles or hydrogen fuel cells?
Electric vehicles.
Fiber optics or wireless communication?
So again, I would prefer wireless communication.
Linear circuits or non-linear circuits?
Linear circuits.
DC motors or AC motors?
AC motors.
Machine learning or traditional programming?
Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but machine learning.
Quantum computing or classical computing?
Of course, quantum computing.
Cloud computing or edge computing?
Personally, I would prefer edge computing.
Nikola Tesla or Isaac Newton?
Nikola Tesla.
Abdul Salam or Oppenheimer?
नहीं मुझे नहीं पता. I don't have the depth to differentiate between the two.
So, what about Messi or Ronaldo?
That's a good question. Messi, because he's more Messi. So
Nikola Tesla or Thomas Edison?
Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla is the best engineer of all time, so I think we can agree on that.
Controversy अगर हम देखें,
who would you think is like the best, the top engineer of all time?
Of all time.
Independent of the field.
नहीं ऐसे सोचा मैं. I think there are so many people who contribute. I'll just give you an example. I mean, हमारी जो इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग का फ्लोर है ना लम्स में, उसके 2 विंग्स हैं. तो जो टेस्ला विंग है ना, उसका जो सजेशन थी वो मैंने दी थी. But that's also related to the area I work in, and I can truly appreciate the work that he had done. Or the other person, that we chose was Maxwell because of the fundamental nature of Maxwell's equations. Although, that's the sort of the fundamental set of laws that govern everything electrical engineering.
Even I don't know if this is a true story, but even Einstein said कि उससे एक बंदे ने पूछा था कि what does the smartest person in the world think about it? Think about a certain topic. So he said, I don't know, go ask Nikola Tesla. Because I think, sir, even I watched a video on this. I don't know how true this is, but even some of his projects were shut down by the government because they feared that he would discover too much.
मुझे उतना नहीं इतना पता, लेकिन so अगेन इसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो है ना वो होती हैं जो कोट एंड कोट कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरी के अंदर चली जाती हैं. बट अगेन व्हाट he did at that time is unbelievable. I mean, many of the things that he brought to reality and brought in the realm of electrical engineering have been around in practical existence for over a century, and only now are those things being changed or surpassed in many domains.
But I don't know if it's true, but I saw a video essay on Nikola Tesla a few years ago, or it's like there was a little controversy that what he invented and what he discovered wasn't all like the credit, all of it doesn't belong to his. उसने अपने students के साथ
मुझे नहीं पता उसका.
I would highly doubt that, considering that he died alone in a hotel. मुझे लगता है उसके students को पसंद भी करते होंगे.
इसलिए नहीं पसंद करते हैं क्या?
So what do you think of underappreciated geniuses? Because I have a thought. So for example, Tesla died alone in a hotel. He claimed that he loved a pigeon who loved him back. So reciprocated that feeling as well. So do you think he's made impossible contributions to science and physics and electricity, right? AC Sara. Do you think that's a life worth living if you were in his shoes? Would you choose a more social life where you have friends and family to die with? Or would you choose a life where you contributed so much to society but you die alone?
मेरा concept थोड़ा सा फर्क है, but I'll just state it as is. मेरे ख्याल में this life is जो reward और punishment की जगह ये है ही नहीं. And again that stems from the basic Islamic fundamentals. We are here and we're here to fulfill the commandments of Allah Ta'ala, and उसके अंदर हमारे हाथ में results नहीं हैं. All we are required to do is to do the right thing and to continuously be doing it, even though we understand that death is the ultimate reality of life. यानी कि हदीस है कि अगर तुम्हें पता भी चल जाए कि क़यामत आ रही है और तुम्हारे हाथ में सीड हो तो उसको प्लांट तुमने करना है, which basically means कि if you know the entire world is going to end, even then you have to plant that seed. So बाकी लोग क्या कहेंगे, लोग अप्रिशिएट करते हैं नहीं करते, I think that's in many ways completely immaterial. That may happen, that may not happen, but that does not take away from the work that a person is doing. And I think it's the journey and the work which is more important ultimately than the results. It's easier said than done. I mean, human beings, हमारी psychology के अंदर जो है ना वो quote unquote appreciation का होना एक पॉजिटिव फीडबैक के तौर पे एग्जिस्ट करता है. बस मैं कहता हूँ हमें हमारे क्रिएटर से बेहतर तो कोई भी नहीं जानता. कब अप्रिसिएशन होनी है, कितनी होनी है नहीं होनी है, वो ऑन वट एवर पाथ अल्लाह ताला वांट्स अस टू गो वो खुद ही डाल देगा और आ जाएगा. हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो जो है वो तो हमें करनी है, हम उसको छोड़ ही नहीं सकते.
So I have a similar view. I think when you're working and how important his contributions were, I think every species का goal is to survive evolutionary point of view से and to advance its species आगे बढ़ने के लिए. And I think even though कि हाँ you won't be able to get, for example इसमें था कि he didn't get the entire social experience. We are social beings हमारी psychology में, as you mentioned. But I really do think कि his discoveries and his contribution to mankind exceeds or essentially is much bigger than his life, is much bigger than all of it because it helps the entirety of humanity for years to come. Because an argument could be made that he did set engineering, especially electrical, on a fast track during the time he was alive, and contributions during the Industrial Revolution. So yes, I do have a similar take.
But there's like no restriction. You can only have one thing. You can only be a genius, but don't have a social life.
I absolutely agree. But in the case, जैसे हमने mention किया था, it was this or that. So if you were to
क्वेश्चन के अंदर एम्बेड कर दिया. वैसे देखिए मैं ऐसे कहता हूँ कि बड़ा यानी कि जो ओनस है ना इस्लाम के अंदर, that's very hard. You have to live within this world. You can't leave it. So आप अपनी social responsibility को छोड़ नहीं सकते. You cannot be a hermit. And you still have to obey all the commandments. यानी बड़ा आसान हो अगर बंदा कहे कि मैं ना सबको छोड़ छाड़ के आइसोलेशन में चला जाता हूँ और मांग बन जाता हूँ और मैं फिर जो मेरा दिल करेगा करने का मैं वो करता रहूँगा और मेरे पास कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू द रिलेशन विच आर देयर और टू सोसाइटी वो ख़त्म हो जाएगी. and I become independent and keep on doing. So you have to stay within this world and still stay on the right path. That's like a double whammy. यानी दोनों चीज़ों को तुमने simultaneously करना छोड़ ही नहीं सकते.